Okay, so it's been 10 days since Zenless Zone Zero released, and the reactions have been varied, to say the least. I've heard that the reception in China hasn't been that great, and there seems to be like a kind of a war in EN between those that like this game and those that don't like this game. Some people saying it sucks, some people saying it's great, but what about Japan? What do they think about Zenless Zone Zero? And the answer is, it depends. Looking at the rating on the mobile app stores, the general opinion seems to be mid-leaning towards positive, especially on the Apple side of things. But what do these numbers actually mean? Looking at the reaction to ZZZ on forums like 5chan, one of the biggest things I saw was the shock at how big the game file size was. I didn't even bother when I heard it was 25 gigabytes. I give up if it says it needs 110 gigabytes. My SSD is full enough as it is. Along with others saying that they already have their hands full with other games such as Genshin or Honkai Star Rail. But the initial reactions to the actual game itself were very similar to EM. Button mashing action and a 1% gacha rate. Everyone seems to think this is an action game, but it's more like Persona with its distinct characters. You enjoy the dialogue between the characters and occasionally have a few battles as an aside. If you want action, go for Wuthering Waves. If Persona is ZZZ, then Sekiro is Wuthering Waves, I think. I've got to the part where I unlocked the daily missions, but for now the action is surprisingly so simple I'm already bored of it. Being restricted by unit types in making my teams is really a drag. The graphics aren't all that. The UI is absolute trash. I like the vibe and the atmosphere, but I feel like the devs were just taking shortcuts. On the whole though, it's not that bad, but I can't really recommend people to go play it on PC. Oof, it was not looking good, and it was like that for the first few days of launch. But things were looking up when Zenless Zone Zero sent everyone 30 pulls for hitting a milestone. Whoa, 30 pulls! 30 pulls? They've been dropping in the sales rankings, so they must be in a panic. We're getting 30 pulls this early? 30 pulls, that's amazing! Wait, it's just 30 polychrome? The f is this shit? That's not nearly enough. What are they doing with this 30 polychrome thing? What do they expect us to pull with just 30 polychrome? They're so damn stingy, lol. It would have been better for them not to give us anything at all. We could get 5 of these rewards and still not get a single pull. 30 polychrome? That's a joke, right? You meant 3000 polychrome, right? I think you get the picture. Zenless was not doing so well with players, and it was only rubbing salt in the wounds. And in doing so, it drove many players away from continuing to play. But what about those that stayed around? What do they think? I checked out some of the bigger Japanese content creators covering games over here in Japan, and here's what they had to say.
ってことで感想としては雰囲気需要度高めという感じ。スタレや原神と違って結構感情豊かに展開するので、なんなら反応とかを体で表現するシーンも多いので、わかりやすさはあると思います。アメコミチックな雰囲気もあるので。
They go on to say that they have a high level of satisfaction for the story, but they haven't delved too deeply into it so far.
アメコミっぽい漫画でストーリーが進行するとこもありますね。でよくよく全体で振り返ってみると、ムービーシーン以外は案外手抜いてます。だいたい立ち絵ならぬ立ちモデルが並んで会話するんですね。
爽快感がやたら事前放送でキーワードに使われていたので、簡単操作で、ド派手なアクション。演出もちょうど派手って感じで。
無課金でもストーリークリアは問題ないんじゃないかと思いますね。で、ポチポチ連打してれば勝てるじゃないかと不満言われるほど難易度は高くないですけど、スタイリッシュな演出で戦えるゲームになってます。不満点として、敵が似たようなのが多いって言ってたんですよね、僕。仮面ライダーゼロワンみたいな配色のやつが多いと。
コアなユーザーではなく、ライト層への意識が高い。原神、スターレイルのいつものパターンかなって思いました。スタレは、まあ少し怪しいけど、原神とかの路線な感じがしますね。ただ、奥深いゲームへの研究意欲が欲しい人、研究意欲がある人は、少し物足りないかもしれません。ちなみに、このゲームは計算式が少しややこしくなっているので、ゲーム自体はできるだけシンプルさを追求、ただしステータスは複雑にするべ、という、若干よくわからない感じにはなっていると思います。まあ、貫通率が増えた程度、と言われるとそれはそうかもしれません。ですが、数値的な研究が好きな人は魅力的な感じですかね。
あとはスゴロクの時に右上にメッセージ出てきた時にテンポ悪いってこれ言ってましたね。動けないし。で、これを倍速で対応したと。ただまだ足りないですかね。3倍速にしたいのと、あと1回倍速をしたらずっと固定しておいてほしいです。
Oh, by the way, Japanese players refer to the TV system as Sugoroku, which is a type of Japanese game. It has two types, either Ban Sugoroku or E Sugoroku. Ban Sugoroku is played on a more physical, thick type board, which is similar to, say, like backgammon, whereas E Sugoroku is more on a thinner type board, similar to, like, say, Snakes and Ladders or Monopoly, or those other games that like have you play around on a track type field. The comments in these videos seem to reflect with similar sentiments too. Honestly, I think the fans are praising it too much. Despite being aimed at casual players, the character designs have strong quirks. There are plenty of characters that deeply resonate with fans, but conversely, there are hardly any characters that appeal universally. Coming from PGR and WUA, I feel like Zen Zero lacks a sense of engagement. The characters are cute and well crafted, but the action isn't as satisfying like in PGR or WUA, it just feels average. The UI is stylish but a bit hard to look at. Honestly, it wasn't interesting. Playing Sugoroku feels like a complete waste of time. I found Zen Zero interesting to play, but I can understand well what the critics are saying. It's a game that's interesting but also has many flaws. The combat and story are really interesting, but if you play it on PS5 or PC, other standalone games are much more enjoyable. If things continue like this, I think many users will drop off in a few months. But it wasn't all negative either. Open world games were getting too vast and exhausting, so personally I find this action-oriented approach much more enjoyable. It's really amazing that even with such a young team they can produce a game of this quality. Above all, it's great to feel their strong preferences as creators. Well, Genshin Impact seems to satisfy the mainstream demand, so I think a game with mixed reviews like this is just right for MiHoYo. Since the development team is young, they probably wanted to try various things. If they can create games of this high quality, I'd like them to make more standalone games in the future. It's still early, but I think it deserves more praise for clarity of the story and dialogue. In games like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, there's a strong Chinese translation influence in the dialogue, but here I felt the Japanese lines were much more natural and understandable. And that's something I saw echoed in various other videos and other comment sections. On the whole, there was great praise for the bouncy, Disney-like expressions and animations for the characters, but particular praise for how natural sounding the dialogue was. Sometimes in games that are developed in other countries, their localization leaves a lot to be desired. Not mentioning any names. Going back to 5chan, the conversation predominantly revolves around the characters, team comps, people talking about how far they got, in what times, etc. Overall, a very different place to how it was on launch. But as I alluded to before, the only ones that are still playing are those that stuck around long enough to go through the story. But what about those that did stick around? Have they changed their opinion? Again, it depends. On the point of the mindless button mashing combat, people seem to agree that things don't get interesting until you reach Act 2. However,
その段階に至るまでが結構つまらない人はつまらない。
And I tend to agree. The first few several hours were actually extremely tedious for me. I had trouble staying awake on stream while playing through this game for any longer time than, say, 2 hours. Once the mobs and bosses started becoming a little more challenging, that's when I started to have more fun playing this game too. However, even though opinions on the combat have changed, the Sugoroku TV system still remains a point of contention, with many people calling for significant changes to the system or its outright removal from the game entirely. But on the whole though, I think Zenless Zone Zero has been an incredible success in Japan. According to GameEda.jp, it seems like Zenless Zone Zero has made more in its first 10 days than Wuthering Waves has made in total since launch. So I think it's already found its playbase, and as long as they continue to bring out more interesting bosses and fun events for people to play and experience, it should have a long life in Japan. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comment section below. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe because I have more videos like this coming out in the future. My next video is going to be a follow-up to my Assassin's Creed Shadows video, which I did a while ago. Let's just say the rabbit hole goes deep and things are starting to get wild. So until next time, I will see you in the next video. Peace.